Hello, this is Mr. Chabry92, and this is a video that I had an idea of doing for a while, but I think now would be the perfect time since this month is the 20th anniversary of Pokemon. So I'm going to tell you my Pokemon story of how I got into Pokemon and how I, went along throughout the years. So where I first learned about Pokemon was actually in Smash Brothers 64. There were some characters that I knew, like Mario, Link, and Donkey Kong, but there were some that I never heard of, and one of those was Pikachu. So that's where I first heard of Pikachu. And a few days later, my dad found Pikachu on the TV. It was the anime, and I decided to watch it, and it was the episode where Ash challenges Misty to get the Cascade badge. So that was my first taste of Pokemon, and after that I remember I really wanted Pokemon. So that Christmas I ended up getting this, and I also got this game that came with it. I'll just set it right there. So this right here is my first Pokemon game, and the Game Boy still works. I took out the batteries because you don't want to leave batteries in your electronic devices. Yep, so that's the first Pokemon game. And an interesting story that I've got about this game is I remember being stuck on Brock for a long time, and then my cousin told me the best way to defeat Brock was actually to get a Metapod and to evolve it into Butterfree. So instead of, getting a Mankey or a Nidoran and using like double kick, I just got a Butterfree and used Confusion. And that's how I defeated Brock. So later on, I ended up getting Pokemon Blue. I don't remember where I ended up getting this, but I had it when I was younger, and I had an easier time getting through Pokemon Blue since you could pick your own starter, and I always picked Squirtle. So there's that. And when I was younger, I didn't have a link cable, so whenever I wanted to trade, I had to use the game pack that came with Pokemon Stadium. So I had two of them, and instead of like having friends come over and trade with me, I would just use these two and trade with myself forever alone. Alright, so there's that. And then for Generation 2, I actually learned about that at my cousin's birthday party, because one of the games that he got was actually Pokemon Silver, and I remember like as soon as he opened it and put it in, because he had a Super Game Boy, he put it in the Super Game Boy and we all sat around the TV to watch, and it was amazing seeing like these Pokemon in such detail because the sprites were so much better and they were like colored, and it was like nighttime in the game and we were all amazed. So later on I ended up getting this. I don't know exactly when I got it, but I remember I got this. And a cool story to go with this was in Generation 2, that's where they introduced the breeding mechanic. And prior to this, in Generation 1, you only had one starter, that's it. There's no other way to get a starter, unless you had Pokemon Yellow, which you basically get the starters in there from the NPCs. But when I discovered that you could breed in Pokemon in this game, I ended up getting like a bunch of Cyndaquil, so my actual team that I used was just basically Typhlosion, Quilava, and Cyndaquil, and that was it. That was the main one. I had a few Pokemon for like Surf and Fly, but the ones that I used were all from the Cyndaquil line. And then I also ended up getting this, which I remember playing a demo of this, because that was back when stores actually had like little demos for you. And I was like blown away because it had like the Pokemon actually were animated. And there was like a female character you could play as. I always remember that was pretty amazing. I know, a female character. That's something that all the Pokemon games have now, but that was mind-blowing back then. So, that was Generation 2. So now we go into Generation 3, which I first learned about Generation 3 when me and my dad went into a GameStop. And I remember there was a poster on the wall that said Pokemon, but it had two Pokemon that I've never seen before. And I was like, wow, is there new Pokemon? And I remember one was a big red beast looking thing, and the other one was a big blue well. And those two Pokemon turned out to be Groudon and Kyogre. And I remember the commercials that went with it, and I was pretty excited. So for my birthday, I ended up getting both Ruby and Sapphire. So instead of just getting one, I ended up with both. Alright, so that's where I got Ruby and Sapphire. But the thing was, in Generation 3, that's when a lot of people were falling out. So I didn't have anyone at school to talk about playing Pokemon. It was just, it felt like I was the only one still playing. So when Fire Red and Leaf Green were coming out, I remember deciding not to ask for that because, well, first off, I knew it was like a repeat of Generation 1, and I still had the Generation 1 game, so younger me wasn't interested in that. And I was worried that I wouldn't have anyone to play with anyway, so I didn't end up getting that. And I think every Pokemon fan has like a point where they were like, they fell out of Pokemon, and that's where I fell out. The later half of Generation 3. I still had Gen 1, Gen 2, and Ruby Sapphire, but I didn't keep up with the rest of the games. So Generation 4 came and went, and I didn't keep up with those titles. So yeah. And then I remember, see, the bad thing about Silver is the internal battery would die. And I really wanted to go back and play because Silver was my favorite. Silver was always my favorite, so I was disappointed that I couldn't just go back and play it again. So I decided to replace the battery, and the internal battery has been replaced in this one, so it works fine. But I remember thinking, you know, I'm going to have to do this every time I decide to pick this game back up. There's got to be an easier way, and that's where I learned about Pokemon Soul Silver, which before I was sure on getting it, I decided to watch YouTube videos of people playing Soul Silver to decide if I want to buy that or not. And there was a Let's Player that I got engrossed in his Soul Silver playthrough, and his name was Leroy, which he recently came back to YouTube and started making more videos. But yeah, so Leroy was the one that got me back into Soul Silver. So I got that, and I realized that there was also more Pokemon games out. So he had another video series he was doing for Pokemon Black and White. So I decided to go into Generation 5. But before I show off my Gen 5 games, here is Pokemon Soul Silver. Get that in focus. Alright. So I ended up getting Pokemon White, So I had Soul Silver and White, and I played through both of those around the same time. I was pretty excited because now I'm back into Pokemon. And then I decided, you know what? I want to go back and play some of these games that I missed out on. So I ended up going and getting a used copy of Diamond. And I also got a used copy of Pokemon Fire Red. So basically I went back and got these games that I missed out on. So then, after that, I heard about new Pokemon games that were coming out with. And I remember like everyone was expecting Pokemon Gray, but they ended up announcing the sequels to White and Black. So White 2 and Black 2. I remember some people were pretty excited about this because it was like the first sequels since Generation 2. And then some people were kindly like not excited for it because they thought it would just be like a third version but split into two. But I was excited, so I ended up getting this as the day, actually at midnight. I went into the store at midnight. I was like, there it is, I'm getting it. So, I also wanted to show off some other games I've got. So here's my Heart Gold copy. The Pokemon Black and Black 2. And Pokemon Platinum. So here's my Pokemon Platinum copy. Alright, so I remember after this there was like a question, when are the next Pokemon games coming out? Because everyone knew it would be for 3DS, and everyone was sitting there in anticipation for the next Pokemon game. And there was a Nintendo Direct in January of 2013, and it was the announcement of the Generation 6 games, which here's my Pokemon Y. The bottom's kind of beat up from where I used it so much. But anyway, so Generation 6 came out, and I pre-ordered my Pokemon Y copy, and I went there the night that it launched, so midnight with this one too. And I got me Pokemon Y, and I got my girlfriend Pokemon X. And we got that the midnight that it launched. So after that, they announced the remakes to Ruby and Sapphire. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. So there's my Omega Ruby. And quickly I'll show you my other Gen 6 games, which are just X and Y. And Alpha Sapphire. Alright. So, for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, we got those the first day. We didn't get them at midnight because our Walmart didn't have it for some reason. So, we ended up getting it the next day from another Walmart. And we just, I couldn't put this game down. And here it is, it's got the same smudges on the bottom. Alright, so that was basically my Pokemon story. I really wanted to just share my Pokemon story. It's something I've been wanting to do, and I think now was the perfect time. So now everyone knows how I got into Pokemon and how I progressed through the franchise through the years. And I hope to see you in the next videos.